The series is about Catherine the Great, who was the Empress of Russia. Today we will recap the first episode, in which we see how an ordinary girl becomes the Empress of Russia when she gets married to the Emperor. Catherine is young and naive, and she's very optimistic and has a lot of dreams about marriage and love. Her ambitions and optimism shatter as she finds out about Peter's unserious, cruel, and spiteful nature, and that he only married her for an heir. She meets many people in the castle, some foes, some friends. Why is Catherine chosen to marry the Emperor? Why is the Emperor's behavior bad towards her? Who will be on Catherine's side and who will be against her? To know it in detail, watch the video till the end. At the beginning of the episode, we see two women on the swings. One of them is Catherine, and the other girl talks to her about how she hears her father and that Catherine's father is so poor and has nothing. Catherine tells her that she's being married to Emperor Peter, ruler of Russia. The other lady is rather shocked to hear that Catherine is becoming the Empress of Russia. Catherine is happy, and she exclaims that Russians have bears, and she would like to have one, and she thinks they're cute. Catherine is then shown in a horse buggy. She's seen reading a book, learning Russian, reading da and yet. She then reaches Russia, where she gets down and kisses the land. Then she goes to the royal palace, where she's guided to the courtroom. She meets Peter and greets him. He has a detailed look at her and claims that she looks taller in the portrait, and orders to send her back and get him a tall woman. He then proceeds to walk towards the door. Catherine is devastated. He reaches the door and starts laughing, and this all turns out to be a prank. He then returns to talk to her. She presents him with a spruce twig, and he questions whether she's crazy. She replies that she's of sound mind. She says that his letter is very poetic, and she's just returning the gesture. Peter is confused as he hasn't written the letter. It was by one of his men. He tells her how he wanted an empress who is from aristocracy, but not too powerful or a player family, and she fits the description. He comments that she smells funny, to which she answers that it's because she was traveling, and Peter claims that he hopes it is. He tells her the wedding is at 7 and leaves to be with his horses. He acts very indifferently towards her. She's chatting to one of his men. She claims that he looks lovely, and she will adjust to his behavior and will be his one and only, to which the man replies that she's very overly optimistic. He is Archbishop Archie. He claims that he's a guy touched by God, and he'll be her spiritual mentor. They enter a room and he introduces her to Muriel, who will be her maid. He then says that he wants to check if she's intact. He's asking to check her virginity. Catherine does not understand until Muriel explains it to her. Archie then asks her to lay down and the scene cuts. Next, we see Catherine sitting on a chair adjacent to Peter on the dining table with all the royals. A general is looking at her and he goes to introduce himself. Peter asks Archie if he's ever eaten a duck as yummy as this, and he replies no. The general goes to meet her, and Peter introduces him as General Velmontov. He's in charge of war with Sweden. Aunt Elizabeth then came and introduced herself. She's the younger sister of Peter's dead mother. Peter then presents a toast in her honor, but he stops her when she tries to speak. He then presents her with a bear as a wedding gift, and she becomes very happy. Later, she's in her room and she chats with Muriel. She asks her if she's prepared for the night, and she answers that her mother has explained to her about it. Her explanation is a bit exaggerated and more of a romantic fantasy. Peter comes into the room and Muriel leaves. He directly gets down to business, skipping the romantic talks and kisses that Catherine had imagined. He continues the deed while talking to his friend who's standing at the door. He finishes and leaves, and she's shocked and falls asleep. The next morning, when Muriel asks about the night, she tells her that it wasn't as she imagined, but that's because she and Peter didn't know each other. She's optimistic that this will get better. She goes to have breakfast with Peter, and he shows her the corpse of his mother that's in a glass coffin. He says that he can't stand to be separated from her, so he can't bury her. She wants to accompany Peter, but he says that he has men's things, and asks Lady Georgina Daimova to take her to other ladies. He then leaves. Rather than chase behind Velmontov, she goes to the ladies' area where many ladies are present selecting hats. She learns that none of them can read or write and are uneducated. She's with some ladies on the lawn playing games, but she's not having a good time, and Muriel suggests that they leave. A lady berates Muriel for speaking uninvited, but Georgina stops her. Catherine and Muriel leave. Catherine asks her about the incident on the lawn, and she's not willing to explain, but Catherine insists. She tells her she's a former noblewoman, a lady of court demoted to serfdom after her father messed with the emperor. This was, in her opinion, a clever punishment to humiliate her. Catherine claims that she and Muriel are alike. Later in the night, she goes to Peter's room, and when she gets there, she removes her clothes. She finds him in bed with Georgina. She's shocked, but he orders her to join them, which she obeys. The next morning, when she wakes up and wears her clothes, she meets Grigor Dymov, Georgina's husband, in the same room. When she questions him, he replies that Peter is his emperor, and that is that. When she asks if it's hard to share, he replies that marriage is a struggle, and she says that she's starting to see it. She's later in the woods with Peter, who's hunting. She says that she wants to be useful to Russia, to which he answers, "You will bear my heirs, and there's no higher use." He asks her if she's pregnant, and she denies. She says that she wants to serve a cause in education. He says that they're modernizing in the European way, and he has banned beards to men under 50. She asks his permission to fund the school, and he grants it. She goes to an abandoned building with Muriel, and she wants to renovate it as a school. She tells her that they need chairs and books. When Muriel asks whether she can also learn, Catherine says she must learn. She goes to the study room, and she sees Count Orlo there. He's crying while reading a book. He gets startled after seeing her, and he gets embarrassed for crying. She told him that she had met the author of the book. He introduces himself, and she asks him to help her teach in the school for women. Later, Velementov is speaking in front of Peter and many other men and saying that they're losing. Peter and Archie blame Velementov, but Orlo speaks in his favor. Peter shuts him up. Velementov claims that he can win the battle. Later, while having a discussion about school, Peter learns from Orlo that it's a school for women. He gets angry and burns the building. Catherine goes to complain to Peter, who shrugs and berates her. Later, while having breakfast, she reads a passage to him. He asks her if she's pregnant, and she again replies no. He takes his dog and leaves. He berates Archie because Peter married Catherine on his suggestion, and he had a vision from God about Catherine that she would bear his heir, but that hasn't happened yet. Archie claims that all marriages take time. He tries to convince Catherine to act like she's happy for the country's sake. Later, she attends a party where everyone is enjoying themselves and having fun in a twisted royal way. Peter is testing new guns that he got, and he shoots bottles and glasses, and even shoots a man's leg. Catherine is with her bear, and Peter shoots him. He falls down dead. He gets close to her, and she slaps him in front of everyone and leaves. She goes to study, and Peter follows her. They chat, and she asks him to send her home, but he doesn't agree. Peter punches her in seclusion and warns her. He tells her that he will keep her locked in the palace, where she will serve him and provide heirs for him. He warns her not to cross him, especially in front of others, and then leaves. Catherine, now being nothing more than a prisoner, decides to evade the castle with the help of Muriel. Later, she's sitting in the garden when Muriel brings a drink for her. She asks for her help in escaping. She first denies it, but then agrees. She puts her in a box that is to be sent out. Peter learns of this and throws the box in the water. The box gets filled with water, and he orders his men to take the box out before she drowns, and then takes her back. Disheartened, Catherine is about to slit her wrists, when Muriel informs her about a law in Russia. If an emperor dies without an heir, the throne will ultimately be given to the empress. Delighted, Catherine begins to plot to overthrow her husband.